The M62 Coach Bombing happened on 4 February 1974 on the M62 motorway in northern England, when a provisional Irish Republican Army bomb exploded in a coach carrying off-duty British Armed Forces personnel and their family members. 12 people were killed by the bomb, which consisted of 25 pounds of high explosive hidden in a luggage locker on the coach. Judith Ward was convicted of the crime later in 1974, but 18 years later the conviction was judged as wrongful and she was released from prison. The bombing. The coach had been specially commissioned to carry British Army and Royal Air Force personnel on leave with their families from and to the bases at Catterick and Darlington during a period of railway strike action. The vehicle had departed from Manchester and was making good progress along the motorway. Shortly after midnight, when the bus was between junction 26 and 27, near Oakwell Hall, there was a large explosion on board. Most of those aboard were sleeping at the time. The blast, which could be heard several miles away, reduced the coach to a tangle of twisted metal, and threw body parts up to 250 yards. The explosion killed 11 people outright and wounded over 50 others, one of whom died 4 days later. Amongst the dead were 9 soldiers, 2 from the Royal Artillery, 3 from the Royal Corps of Signals and 4 from the 2nd Battalion Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. One of the latter was Corporal Clifford Horton, whose entire family, consisting of his wife Linda and his sons Lee and Robert, also died. Numerous others suffered severe injuries, including a 6-year-old boy, who was badly burned. The driver of the coach, Roland Handley, was injured by flying glass, but was hailed as a hero for bringing the coach safely to a halt. Handley died, aged 76, after a short illness, in January 2011. Suspicions immediately fell upon the IRA, which was in the midst of an armed campaign in Britain involving numerous operations, later including the Guildford Pub Bombing and the Birmingham Pub Bombings. Reactions in Britain were furious, with senior politicians from all parties calling for immediate action against the perpetrators and the IRA in general. The British media were equally condemnatory. According to The Guardian, it was the worst IRA outrage on the British mainland at that time, whilst the BBC has described it as one of the IRA's worst mainland terror attacks. The Irish Sunday Business Post later described it as the worst of the awful atrocities perpetrated by the IRA during this period. IRA Army Council member Dorothy O'Connell was challenged over the bombing and the death of civilians during an interview, and replied that the coach was bombed because IRA intelligence indicated that it was carrying military personnel only. The attack's most lasting consequence was the adoption of much stricter anti-terrorism laws in Great Britain and Northern Ireland, allowing police to hold those suspected of terrorism for up to 7 days without charge, and to deport those suspected of terrorism in Britain or the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland to face trial, where special courts judged with separate rules on terrorism suspects. The entrance hall of the westbound section of the Hartshead Moor service area was used as a first aid station for those wounded in the blast. A memorial to those who were killed was later created there. Following a campaign by relatives of the dead, a larger memorial was later erected, set some yards away from the entrance hall. The site, situated behind 4 flagpoles, includes an English oak tree, a memorial stone, a memorial plaque and a raised marble tablet inscribed with the names of those who died. A memorial plaque engraved with the names of the casualties was also unveiled in Oldham in 2010. Prosecution. Following the explosion, the British public and politicians from all 3 major parties called for swift justice. The ensuing police investigation, led by Detective Chief Superintendent George Oldfield, was rushed, careless and ultimately forged, resulting in the arrest of the mentally ill Judith Ward, who claimed to have conducted a string of bombings in Britain in 1973 and 1974 and to have married and had a baby with 2 separate IRA members. Despite her retraction of these claims, the lack of any corroborating evidence against her, and serious gaps in her testimony, which was frequently rambling, incoherent and improbable, she was wrongfully convicted in November 1974. Following her conviction, the Irish Republican Publicity Bureau issued a statement. Miss Ward was not a member of Óglaigh na Éireann and was not used in any capacity by the organization. She had nothing to do whatsoever with the military coach bomb, the bombing of Euston Station and the attack on Latimer Military College. Those acts were authorized operations carried out by units of the Irish Republican Army. The case against her was almost completely based on inaccurate scientific evidence using the grease test and deliberate manipulation of her confession by some members of the investigating team. The case was similar to those of the Guildford 4, the Birmingham 6 and the Maguire 7, which occurred at the same time and involved similar forged confessions and inaccurate scientific analysis. Ward was finally released in 1992, when 3 appeal court judges held unanimously that her conviction was a grave miscarriage of justice, and that it had been secured by ambush.